our series of webinars on pregnancy and complication in different systems. We started with pregnancy and respiratory problems, then moved on to pregnancy and neurological problems. This is the third in the series of pregnancy, along with changes in the skin, physiologically normal and pathological. And I invite Dr. Renu Chawla. She's the treasurer and the ex-joint secretary of our forum. Very lovely person, very humble and soft-spoken, and she's a fantastic singer, the nightingale of our forum. So here, without wasting much time, Dr. Renu Chawla. She will be speaking. She has divided her presentation into two parts. The first part deals with the normal physiological changes in the skin in pregnancy, followed by dermatosis specific to pregnancy. So, Dr. Renu Chawla.
Dr. Renu Chawla has worked very hard on this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
चलिए full कर लो full.
ये पता नहीं क्यों नहीं जा
Full कर लो.
Everyone. So I'm going to talk about the skin problems during pregnancy. Pregnancy is characterized by altered endocrine, metabolic, and immunological changes in pregnancy, specific dermatosis of pregnancy, and pre-existing dermatosis. Specific can be further divided into dermatosis associated with fetal risk and dermatosis not associated with fetal risk. Physiological changes. During pregnancy, there are many physiological changes in the form of pigmentary changes, glandular changes, structural, vascular, mucosal, hair changes, and nail changes. Pigmentary changes are most common amongst the physiological changes. There is diffuse hyperpigmentation and sometimes selective hyperpigmentation of areola, axilla, and genitalia is also seen. Linea nigra is present in almost all the cases. Melasma is seen in quite number of patients. There is darkening of freckles, lentigens, and melanocytic nevi. Linea nigra is hyperpigmented line extending from pubis to xiphoid with pigmentation more in inferior line. Hair changes are seen in the form of hirsutism. Hirsutism is excessive growth of hair anywhere in the body. In pregnancy, it is quite common and mostly seen over the face, chest, abdomen, and sometimes over the limbs also. Usually, this kind of growth occurs in second half of pregnancy, and most of this excessive hair growth goes away by 6 months after delivery. If it does not go, then we need to investigate for hyperandrogenism state due to what it is, like luteoma is the cause, or lutein cyst is the cause, or PCOD is the cause. We need to investigate the patient further. If female fetus is carried in the pregnancy, then it may get masculinized because of the hyperandrogenism. Usually this state recurs in pregnancies, but may regress incompletely in between pregnancies. There is thickening of scalp hair. Thickening of scalp hair is a relative term because during pregnancy, because of the increased estrogens, the hair follicles, they go into the dormant phase. There is growth phase is prolonged. So what happens is most of the hair, they stop growing, but they remain over the scalp. So it gives a false feeling that scalp hair have become thick. In the postpartum period, telogen effluvium, this is a reversible condition in which many hairs are lost, but it is reversible because this occurs 3 to 5 months later due to retention of anagen hair, prolongation of telogen phase during pregnancy. Any stressful condition causes telogen effluvium, but it gets reversed once the condition is over. This is the diagram, this is the photograph of telogen effluvium seen in a postpartum patient. Nail changes, transverse grooving, brittleness, accelerated growth, subungual hyperkeratosis, and distal onycholysis may be seen. Distal onycholysis is separation of distal end of the nail from its bed. Glandular changes. There is increased eccrine function. Eccrine glands, they show increased function which results in miliaria and hyperhidrosis. elevated thyroid activity with related iodine deficiency, increased sebaceous function, which results in growth of Montgomery tubercles and acne. Decreased apocrine function is seen in pregnancy, normal pregnancy. Structural changes of pregnancy are seen in the form of stria gravidarum and molluscum fibrosum gravidarum. Molluscum fibrosum gravidarum are small overgrowths which are brown in color, but they get shed off after delivery. And cracked and sword nipples are also seen in purpureum. This is the normal stria gravidarum seen in pregnancy. Vascular changes which occur in pregnancy can be seen as spider angiomas, Palmer erythema, carpal tunnel syndrome, non-petic edema, varicosities, purpura, gingival hyperemia, pyogenic granuloma, hemorrhoids, and hemangiomas. Vascular changes like spider telangiectasia, they are dilating capillaries, small red, blue, and purple, and they look like web in the appearance. They look like this because of the distension instability, because of the new vessel formation. New vessel formation is there because of the increased estrogen levels. Spider telangiomata, they are common during pregnancy. They look like spider radiation. Small lesions are there with puncta and radiated branches. Palmer erythema is seen as reddening of the thenar and hypothenar eminences due to high estrogen levels. Varicose veins are seen in almost 40% of the pregnant women. These are distended large veins. Granuloma gravidarum is also known as pregnancy tumor of the gingiva. It is exophytic, raised, soft, erythematous tumor that bleeds easily. It is normally seen in second and third trimester. It occurs because of secondary to repeated injury to the mucosa or hormonally induced gingival tenderness. Pathological changes. Pathological changes can be specific to dermatosis. They are pregnancy-specific dermatosis like intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy, polymorphic eruption of pregnancy, commonly known as PEP, atopic eruption of pregnancy, or pemphigoid gestationis. Dermatological conditions not specific to pregnancy are acne vulgaris, psoriasis, and pustular psoriasis, erythema nodosum, and pyogenic granuloma. Miscellaneous are skin infections like scabies, candidiasis, tinea, viral infections like varicella, herpes, HIV, and HPV. Acne vulgaris is very commonly seen in pregnancy. It improves in early pregnancy but worsens in third trimester because of the increased level of hormones. Treatment required is usually topical treatment is preferred during pregnancy in the form of azelaic acid, either in the form of cream or lotion is applied. Benzoyl peroxide gel 2.5 to 10% is also used. Oral antibiotics in the form of erythromycin or oral azithromycin may be given if the condition is severe. Topical and oral retinoids must be avoided in pregnancy. Vulvovaginal candidiasis, it occurs more frequently in pregnant women. Incidence increases with gestational age. It usually does not pose serious problems to the mother and newborn, although the symptoms may be distressing. The most severe infection occurs in pregnant women who are diabetic. Higher glycogen content in the vaginal environment and enhanced adherence of Candida species to vaginal epithelial cells results in increased symptomatic vaginitis in pregnancy. Neonatal infection in the form of perioral or perianal rash or oral thrush may be present. Treatment is usually in pregnancy, topical antifungal treatment is preferred. Oral treatment is the patients that respond with the topical treatment. Topical treatments, in the topical treatments, we can use many ointments in the form of antifungal treatments in the form of clotrimazole, which can be used in the form of 1% cream or 2% cream. 5 grams is to be applied in the vagina. If it is 1%, then it is to be used for 7 days. If it is a 2% cream, it is to be used for 3 days. Similarly, miconazole can be used vaginally in the form of either tablets, vaginal tablets, or in the form of vaginal creams. And some of the preparations are once only single application preparations are there, like ticonazole, that is 6.5% cream. 5 grams of it is used only once. Then we can use fenticonazole, that is a 600 milligram capsule to be used locally. Or sometimes there are other preparations, many other preparations are there which we can use topically. If there is a case of recurrent vulvovaginal candidiasis, then sometimes boric acid capsule to be used locally in the form of 600 milligram capsule used once, and this also helps in giving relief in the candidal rashes. If oral treatment is required, that is required only in extensive cases of candidiasis. And the oral treatment is given only in last trimester of pregnancy, and terbinafine in the dosage of 250 milligram tablets are available. 250 milligram tablets are used daily for 4 to 6 weeks. And if more treatment is required, then we need help of the dermatologist. This is the extensive form of oral and vaginal candidiasis. Trichomoniasis, the prevalence in pregnancy ranges from 6 to 22%. It may be associated with preterm delivery or premature rupture of membrane and low birth weight babies. Although the risk of infection to the neonate is low, less than 1%, but sometimes the neonate may show signs of vaginitis, cystitis, and respiratory distress. This is the typical strawberry appearance of the cervix. Tinea is a very common fungal infection. It is a superficial fungal infection which causes itchy, reddish raised lesions. Treatment is topical antifungals, or in cases of severe itching, antihistaminics can be used. Combined creams containing steroids are a big no-no. Scabies is a very common, another common fungal infection seen in pregnant patients. It is caused by the scabies mite, and the sites of the lesion are interdigital clefts. Then it can be seen on the anterior aspect of the wrist joint, ulnar aspect of the forearm, or it can be there over the breast, over the periumbilical area, or over the genitalia. These are the common sites of infection. It is caused by mite infestation. Intense itching, usually more at night, is present. Family history of similar complaints is commonly present. These are the common sites which I have already enumerated. Treatment is by giving 5% permethrin lotion. It is to be applied at bedtime on whole body, behind ears, below neck. Behind ears also and below neck also. Over the whole body, below neck. Patient to take bath and wash all clothing and bedding, to treat all close contacts, and this application is to be repeated every week. Antihistaminics and emollients need to be prescribed if patient has intense itching. Varicella is commonly known as chickenpox. This is the primary infection, and it usually starts as the prodromal symptoms are like flu-like symptoms are there, followed by the appearance of rash all over the body in 3 to 5 days time. Mother and child are at risk of pneumonia and encephalitis. Pneumonia and encephalitis is seen in patients who have more than 100 skin lesions or who are smokers. These are the high-risk categories for developing pneumonia. If high-risk pregnancy findings are there, if infection occurs between 1 to 20 weeks of gestation. Maximum risk is between 13 to 20 weeks. Fetal varicella syndrome is seen in the neonates if infection occurs between 13 to 20 weeks. If it occurs less than 13 weeks, only 0.2% of the neonates are affected. If it is seen between 13 to 20 weeks, which is the highest risk category, almost 2% of the babies, fetal varicella syndrome is seen. More than 20 weeks gestation, it is rarely seen. Once the varicella is confirmed, then treatment with acyclovir, oral or intravenously given. Oral is given if the patient is having milder form of the disease. If patient is having severe form of disease or varicella pneumonia is there, then patient needs to be hospitalized and intravenous acyclovir is required. It helps to prevent complications. So acyclovir should be given. Perinatal infections pose high risk to the fetus because if suppose the infection occurs once the patient is in labor or just before labor or just during labor, if infection occurs, then high chances of mortality in the fetus to the tune of 30% because of the widespread cutaneous and visceral disease. Treatment with high dose intravenous acyclovir is required. These are the chickenpox marks almost in the healing phase. They are showing encrusted appearance. One thing more about chickenpox, those individuals who are not vaccinated and who have not had chickenpox in the non-pregnant state, they should be given two doses of live attenuated vaccine 4 to 8 weeks apart should be given to all the patients who are not having the infection and who are not having the antibodies also. And herpes zoster, varicella, immunoglobulin should be given to the neonate if the mother has infection of chickenpox 5 days before or 2 days after the delivery to cover for the high risk category of the neonates. Verrucae or warts, they increase in size and number due to influence of increased hormone levels, increased vascularity, immunodeficiency, and moistness due to constant vaginal discharge, which favors for vaginal growth. Larger warts may cause dystocia, may block the vaginal tract, and cause difficulty in delivery. Life-threatening hemorrhage because of the increased vascularity may occur if vaginal delivery happens. It can be transmitted perinatally to the fetus, to the newborn in the form of laryngeal papillomatosis or perianal warts in the neonate. Treatment is, even without treatment, these warts resolve after delivery. Cryotherapy may be required. Trichloroacetic acid 80 to 90% solution once a week is applied for the treatment. Laser ablation or electrocautery may also be used. Larger warts are surgically excised. Podophyllin, interferon, imiquimod, they are not advocated and they should not be used during pregnancy. Cesarean to prevent transmission to the newborn is mandatory in active lesions. Herpes simplex infection, the transmission of genital herpes to neonates is relatively rare and is estimated to be less than 3%. The risk increases more than tenfold if a woman acquires genital herpes infection in the 3rd trimester and delivers prior to the development of antibodies. Risk of transmission to the infant, primary HSV infection of either type is 50%. First episode, if it is a first episode, non-primary HSV2 infection in a woman with a past history of HSV1 infection, then the risk is 20%. In recurrent HSV2, the risk of neonatal transmission is less than 1%. Management in pregnancy, women with active recurrent genital herpes should be offered suppressive viral therapy at or beyond 36 weeks of gestation. Cesarean delivery is indicated in women with active genital lesions or prodromal symptoms such as vulvar pain or burning at delivery, because these symptoms indicate that there is going to be impending outbreak of these lesions. Cesarean delivery is not recommended for women who have gone into remission and who had history of HSV infection, but right now they don't have any active disease. Autoimmune disorders. Systemic lupus erythematosus becomes better. It shows better outcome. Few develop renal damage, and neonatal lupus is also reported in few cases. Cutaneous form of lupus erythematosus has no effect on pregnancy. Scleroderma or systemic sclerosis, most of the patients don't experience major problems. Some may improve. Malignant melanoma developing during pregnancy has slightly worse prognosis, but pregnancy following excision doesn't affect prognosis. Atopic dermatitis often improves but is unpredictable. Psoriasis shows variable effects, generally improves during pregnancy with relapse postpartum. Prevention of leprosy, presentation of leprosy in pregnancy, 20 to 30% women develop first signs and symptoms of leprosy in pregnancy or in the postpartum period. They don't show leprosy before. Only in pregnancy they show the signs and symptoms. So this was my first part of presentation. Second part I'll present after some time.
So that was a wonderful presentation, Dr. Renu. If there are any questions from the audience, we can have it after.
Oh yes, we should take 10 minutes properly the questions. If any questions, please. The only thing I wish to comment about candidiasis is very common. In fact, in our practice, it is really common. And I find once the first trimester is gone, local vulvovaginitis, you give local, but I think you have to give systematic. systemic.
Terbinafine can be used, but we need to take care of the liver functions. If liver functions
agree.
are normal, we can give terbinafine.
I think all terbinafine, none of you must have used it. The more frequent ones, fluconazole and other things you have used it.
Fluconazole is contraindicated in pregnancy. Fluconazole is not to be given. It is category C drug.
So terbinafine कितने लोगों ने यूज किया? नाम बताओ. किसी ने भी नहीं यूज किया.
मैम terbinafine की डोज नहीं पता होती इसलिए नहीं यूज किया. But now I know the dose. I think I should be using it. 250 milligram.
Name of the drug बताओ ना.
Zmig. मैम Zmig.
नाम से भी आता है terbinafine.
टर्बीटोटल के नाम से होता है. टर्बीटोटल
के नाम से आता है. 2.5
Zmig के नाम से भी आता है.
मैनकाइंड का टर्बिना फोर्स के नाम से आता है.
मैम इसके नाम terbinafine के नाम से भी आता है. सच भी आता है.
Zmig के नाम से भी आता है. Zmig.
It is category B drug.
That's okay. That's okay.
It is category B drug.
Ma'am, fluconazole can be given, but it is to be given especially in the third trimester only.
Correct. That's it.
Terbinafine should be given in third trimester with special care of the liver functions.
Dr. Rendu, any use of fenticonazole, vaginal pessary in pregnancy is this safe?
I said single day वाले मैंने बोले थे ना उसमें बोला था fenticonazole can also be used.
That can be used.
That can
And
be
it is
used.
one tablet, you know.
Only
And
single application.
any role of probiotics, when you find that she's not improving, the candidial function is infection is not
In
improving.
cases of recurrent vulvovaginal candidiasis, some people have used it, but there is no proven. There are no randomized trials for it.